66 million years ago, a rock the size of a mountain slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula at 43,000 miles per hour. And in the space of a few hours, it ended a dynasty that had ruled Earth for over 160 million years. The dinosaurs vanished, and eventually, we showed up. That is the story you were taught, and it is technically true, but it hides something enormous. Because the asteroid did not just kill the dinosaurs, it killed a future where reptilian bodies kept evolving, kept adapting, kept getting smarter. And the question almost nobody asks is the one that changes everything. What if that rock had missed? Not by much, just a few degrees of trajectory, a few minutes earlier or later in Earth's rotation, and the asteroid sails past a near miss, a footnote. The dinosaurs wake up the next morning like nothing happened. So what happens next? What happens in the 66 million years that follow? Because here's what most people do not realize. Dinosaurs were not the slow, stupid, lumbering lizards you grew up watching in old documentaries. That image is almost entirely wrong. By the late Cretaceous period, some dinosaurs had already begun developing traits that we consider uniquely advanced. Troodon, a small predator roughly the size of a human child, had one of the largest brain-to-body ratios of any dinosaur ever found. Its eyes faced forward, giving it binocular vision, the same depth-perceiving setup that lets you catch a ball or thread a needle. It had partially opposable fingers. It hunted in coordinated groups. 70 million years ago. But this animal was already doing things that early primates would not manage for another 60 million years. And it was getting smarter. That is not speculation. That is what the fossil record shows. Brain size in the troodontid lineage was increasing over geological time. So if the asteroid never hits, Troodon does not freeze in place. Evolution keeps working. Millions of years pass. Brains get bigger. Social groups get more complex. Communication gets more sophisticated. And at some point, the math starts to get uncomfortable because if you extrapolate the trend, and a paleontologist named Dale Russell actually did this in 1982, you arrive at something disturbing. Russell called it the Dinosauroid, a thought experiment where he projected Troodon's evolutionary trajectory forward. What he got was a bipedal, large-brained, wide-tool-using reptilian creature with vertical pupils and three-fingered hands. It looked uncomfortably like something between a dinosaur and a human. Now, Russell's specific model has been criticized, and fairly so. Evolution does not follow a straight line, and there is no guarantee that intelligence converges on a humanoid shape. But the core argument was never really about the shape. It was about the inevitability of the direction. Because intelligence, once it starts developing, tends to keep developing. It is too useful. An animal that can plan, communicate, and manipulate its environment outcompetes one that cannot. And the dinosaurs had a 160 million year head start on mammals. To put that in perspective, or the entire age of mammals, from the extinction of the dinosaurs to you reading this sentence, fits inside the span of time that dinosaurs had already been evolving. They had 3 times longer than we have had. So the real question is not whether a smart dinosaur species would have eventually emerged. The real question is how smart and how fast. And this is where things get genuinely strange, because once a species crosses the threshold into tool use, everything accelerates. It took humans roughly 2 million years to go from the first stone tools to agriculture. It took another 10,000 to go from agriculture to cities, another 5,000 to go from cities to industrialization, another 200 to go from industrialization to nuclear weapons, and another 80 to go from nuclear weapons to artificial intelligence. Each leap is faster than the last. The acceleration is not linear, it is exponential. Now, imagine giving that same exponential curve not 2 million years of runway, but 66 million. Even if a dinosaur civilization developed 10 times slower than humans, even 100 times slower, 66 million years is an almost incomprehensible amount of time. For reference, if a dinosaur species had invented stone tools just 1 million years after the asteroid was supposed to hit, they would have had 65 million years of technological development. Humans have had roughly 10,000 years of civilization. They would have had 6,500 times longer. The numbers stop making sense at that scale. You cannot even meaningfully imagine what a civilization looks like after 10 million years of continuous development, let alone 60 million. We have had the internet for about 30 years, and it has already restructured human consciousness. What does 30 million years of compounding technological progress produce? We literally do not have a framework to think about it. But let us stay grounded for a moment and talk about what the first few million years might have looked like, because this is where biology gives us real clues. If the asteroid had missed, the immediate future of Earth would have been dominated by two trends. First, flowering plants were already spreading rapidly in the late Cretaceous, creating new food sources and reshaping ecosystems. Dinosaur herbivores were co-evolving with these plants in real time. Second, the climate was gradually cooling, and cooler climates tend to favor animals with higher metabolisms and more active lifestyles. Many paleontologists now believe that a significant number of dinosaurs were already warm-blooded or close to it. They were not sluggish, cold-blooded reptiles basking on rocks. They were active, energetic animals with insulating feathers and high caloric demands. In a cooling world without a mass extinction, feathered dinosaurs would have thrived. The lineage that survived in our timeline, birds, gives us a direct window into what dinosaur evolution was already producing. Crows use tools. Parrots understand abstract concepts. Some bird species pass the mirror test, recognizing their own reflections, a benchmark of self-awareness that most mammals fail. And these are birds, the dinosaur descendants that survived the worst catastrophe in planetary history and had to rebuild from nearly nothing. Imagine what the dinosaurs that did not have to survive an apocalypse could have become. But here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. If a dinosaur civilization had arisen even 10 million years ago, which is conservative given the timeline, they would have had 10 million years to do everything humans have done and incomprehensibly more. They could have industrialized, gone to space, colonized other worlds, and then had millions of years left over. They could have exhausted their home planet's resources and moved on. They could have uploaded their consciousness into machines. They could have engineered their own biology into something unrecognizable. Or they could have destroyed themselves. Because that is the other side of the coin, and it is the one we do not like to talk about. Intelligence is not just a gift, it is a risk. Every capability that allows a species to reshape its environment also allows it to destroy it. Humans have had nuclear weapons for 80 years, and we have come within minutes of ending civilization at least twice. We are currently running an uncontrolled experiment on our own atmosphere. We are building artificial intelligence systems whose long-term behavior we cannot predict. And we have had these powers for less than a century. What happens when a species has them for 1 million years? 10 million? The Fermi paradox asks why, in a universe billions of years old with billions of potentially habitable planets, and we have never detected any sign of alien intelligence. One of the most chilling answers is the Great Filter. The idea that there is some barrier, some threshold, that intelligent civilizations almost never survive past. Maybe it is nuclear war. Maybe it is ecological collapse. Maybe it is artificial intelligence that outgrows its creators. Maybe intelligence, wherever it arises, tends to burn so bright and so fast that it destroys itself before it can spread to the stars. And if that is true, then maybe the asteroid did not rob the dinosaurs of a glorious future. Maybe it saved them from a terrible one. Or maybe, and this is the thought that keeps certain scientists up at night, maybe a dinosaur civilization did arise. Maybe they had their 10 million years. Maybe they built everything, explored everything, learned everything. Oh, and maybe after millions of years, they left so few traces that we would never find them. Because here is an uncomfortable geological fact. If a civilization existed 60 million years ago, even a sprawling technological one, we would almost certainly never know. The geological record does not preserve skyscrapers over tens of millions of years. It barely preserves bones. The entire fossil record of all dinosaur species ever found represents a tiny fraction of the species that actually existed. We have found fossils of maybe 1,000 dinosaur species. Estimates suggest there were tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands over the Mesozoic era. Most left no trace at all. And an industrial civilization that lasted even 100,000 years, a blink in geological time, would leave a layer of residue thinner than a pencil line in the rock record. We would need to be looking in exactly the right place, at exactly the right layer, and we would need to know what we were looking for. No one is looking. So the asteroid hits, the dinosaurs die, and tiny shrew-like mammals crawl out of their burrows into an empty world. They diversify, they grow, they evolve. And 66 million years later, one of their descendants puts on a suit and goes to work in an office building, convinced that this was always how it was supposed to go. But it was not supposed to go any way. It went this way because of a rock, one angle of entry, one specific Tuesday 66 million years ago. Mike, change any variable and you are not here. Nothing you have ever known exists. No cities, no languages, no music, no humanity. Instead, something else is standing on this planet, looking up at the same stars, maybe asking the same questions we ask, or maybe they already answered them millions of years before the first primate ever opened its eyes. We think of the dinosaurs as ancient history, as failed experiments, as the before to our after. But they were not a failure. They were the longest-running success story in the history of complex life on Earth. They did not die because they were flawed. They died because the universe is random, and one day the random pointed at them. Next time, the random might point at us. And whatever crawls out of the wreckage 66 million years from now will look back at our fossils with the same quiet pity we reserve for the dinosaurs, never knowing what we were becoming, only knowing that we stopped.